This kind of touches bases with my rebuilding America foundation that I'm trying to put together. It's not completely about it because it's more about the politics behind everything going on in our market at this time. But in order for my idea to really fully work, we still need to fix the, the, the broader picture of what all is going on in America. There's a lot of arguments for and against UBI. Some of the arguments for UBI are just outrageous, and some of the arguments against UBI are outrageous. There is a middle ground, though. And I don't even think the UBI should be permanent for everybody. I think in the beginning, everybody should get it because it's about rebuilding the economy and getting the economy back on its feet and getting Main Street back in order. I think in 10 years, we can start the transition to letting go of UBI for all and making it the sole safety net. No more welfare for future generations, not even the Social Security. They won't have to pay into Social Security anymore. Right now, for my generation and maybe even the generation prior to me, behind me, so I'm 45, so figure the generation that, is in its 30s, maybe even late 20s. Pretty much not anybody who's paid into Social Security already, I guess you would have to say. So for anyone that's in a work in this period that's in that generation that's already paid into Social Security, we got to be grandfathered in and have some kind of options here. I think one of the best options is to give us the choice of either staying in the Social Security system or allowing us to be rolled over, have our Social Security benefits that we've already paid in rolled over into our own personal 401ks. But that is ours. That belongs to us. That is not some kind of government handout. That belongs to us. We paid into that. It's just like unemployment. I point that out about unemployment all the time. I'm an experienced manager. Anybody who tells you unemployment is not yours, that you didn't pay into that, they either don't know what they're talking about or they're flat out lying to you. Before you are hired, unemployment is part of all the background deductions that are already figured out into your salary. The employer payment into Social Security and all the other things that they pay, they're called payroll taxes. But there's other things that are included in that don't necessarily fall underneath the whole category of tax, but there's a lot of things that fall in that payroll taxes that they're paying behind, that they're backdoor taxes for you. You are paying them, though. You pay your unemployment insurance and you do pay your Social Security. They belong to you. I think with UBI, we can finally get to the point where you won't have to pay them things anymore. That would be done away with because that would be all part of UBI can be used to just take all that stuff over. UBI will also be a social net for, people that, are still in need. Medicaid, down the line, I think Medicaid rolls are going to roll back just by the positive effect UBI will have on the economy. So that I don't know. I don't know how we can fix Medicaid. I'm not the person to ask about that. That's a very complicated issue. That touches on more than just the financial side of it and the regulatory side of it. there's also just the human side of that. That's a very complex issue. But that Medicaid aside, I think most of the rest of the whole general welfare and unemployment, Social Security, SSI, all that stuff can eventually be completely eliminated. You can get rid of all that government bureaucracy, and you can get rid of all that government waste of money. Because you got to realize when you get rid of all of that, just by getting rid of the cost of maintaining all of that, brings down the overall cost of UBI in itself. And you're talking billions of dollars in savings right there. I mean, hundreds of billions over a period of 10 years, if not close to probably $1 trillion. I mean, it's a lot of money that will be saved in the end. And it cuts all that government out of there. But UBI is not the only answer. You can't just say, oh, we're going to give you $1,000 and that's going to fix everything. Because that's not going to fix everything. It's not going to happen at all. If we don't fix the other issues, it's liable to make things worse. Which is why I'm very concerned about both people that are already in government in both parties and the current Democratic platform running to try to get into government. Yang, actually, I would trust Yang. I'll admit that. I mean, that guy, he seems very, very trustworthy. I don't think he's simply smoke and mirrors. Obviously, because the way the game is set up, you're forced to use some smoke and mirrors, but I don't think he lives by the smoke and mirrors. That's why he comes off the way he does, because he's not the type of person that lives that way. So I have a lot of trust in him. I think he'd be a great president, in all honesty. But you need to fix the tax system too. And with fixing the tax system, that means first and foremost, 3 things have to happen all at once, all next to each other, all in tandem, and they have to happen and this all has to happen in tandem with the implementation of UBI. And there's still a third part that has to happen after these all happen as well. So it's a lot of complication. We need a lot of people we can trust in government, which is our biggest obstacle. It's the bigger obstacle than actually fixing the economy. It's just getting people we can trust in the government. And that will do this right without doing everything they can to poison it so that it fails, so that they can say, look, we told you the opposing party was doing it wrong. That will be our biggest obstacle. Because whether the Democrats are doing it or the Republicans are doing it, whoever is in power, the opposing party will do whatever they can to make sure that it fails, so that whoever is in power at the time, they can say, we told you they were bad. We told you they were this. And they will do it on purpose. They will intentionally hurt you and me to make themselves look right. And that is our biggest obstacle with our politicians. And that is the bigger obstacle than actually fixing the economy. And it's sad to say, the economy should be our biggest obstacle, but it's not. It's actually the people we need to trust. And power is our biggest obstacle. And that's disgusting, and it's saddening, and it's despicable. But when we fix these taxes, we need to bring down the tax rate. We need to get rid of all subsidies. We need to get rid of all tax loopholes. We need to get rid of all write-offs, everything. We need to just make it a clean, simple tax rate. Even if you want to keep the progressive system we have now, which I don't think is I don't think it's fair even, never mind great, but there's some arguments for it and there's some against it, and it's not the worst system in the world, at least. I'll give it that. I think it could be a lot better. But we get rid of all that stuff, and we bring down the tax rates, and we don't even have to, you know, there's people that can figure out these numbers and figure out, okay, if we get rid of all the tax subsidies and tax loopholes, tax write-offs, all of this stuff, everything that, all the corporate welfare that we give all the corporations, if we get rid of all that, how much does that cost the average corporation per dollar? And say they figure out that it costs the average corporation per dollar $40. Then they can figure out, okay, well, how can we get that down so that it will cost the average corporation 5 to 10 cents? I'm sorry, I said $40. I meant 40 cents per dollar. How can we bring it down where it will cost the average corporation then to compensate for all of them to add on top of their taxes as we lower it down to still stay in a reasonable rate, and it costs them something like 5 to 10 cents extra per dollar. So say they bring the, say right now what's the corporate tax rate? I don't know. I know at one time it was way up there. Let's just say the corporate tax rate is 25% currently. We get rid of all the tax loopholes. We get rid of all the corporate welfare. We get rid of all the write-offs. What I'm saying is when you get rid of all that, instead of bringing the corporate tax rate down to say 7 or 8%, you bring it down to maybe 12 or 13%, 14%, something like that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. But I'm as good as I am with numbers, I'm just not I'm not a doctorate in mathematics. I mean, you know, it's just I didn't go to Harvard to study mathematics. It's just that's, you know, there's people out there that have done that though, and they can figure these numbers out and figure out how to implement this the right way. But I'm still smart enough to know this can be done. Most of us are smart enough to know that this can be done. So, you know, after that is all done, then the third thing that needs to be done at the same time, so now you got the UBI and you got the tax systems fixed. The next thing that has to be done is regulation needs to be fixed. And I'm not talking about getting rid of common sense regulation. I'm not talking about totally abolishing the EPA. As much as I hate the EPA, if the EPA wasn't being used to strip people of private property rights and to target capitalism and to penalize people for trying to not rely on the government, it would be a great tool. Because, in all honesty, we need something like the EPA anyway. We do need something like the EPA. You can't have junkyards just dumping oil and batteries and gasoline and antifreeze wherever they feel like on the property, because it seeps into our drinking water, obviously, for one. And in 100 or 200 years, when that junkyard's gone, that property needs to be able to be used. You know, so, you know, I'm not completely against the EPA. I'm just against the I'm against the weaponization of the EPA. Just like I'm against the weaponization of any regulation, which is what goes on now with most regulation in America. Most regulation in America is weaponized against anybody who might be a threat to corporate America. For example, you like cookies? You probably know Grandma's cookies. I love their peanut butter cookies. They're the ones that come in the brown package. I can remember when it was like 25 cents a package for 2 cookies. I think it's something like 59 cents now or 79 cents now for 2 cookies. But Grandma's, they're great. They're Famous Amos. I mean, I love the story of Famous Amos, and the same thing with the story behind the guy from that created Time Warner Cable. He's actually the guy who created HBO, made cable national. And not going to get into that right now because I've burned up too much video time on this. But they're amazing stories. We have a lot in common, me with both Famous Amos and I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's from Liberty. He actually built. I'll make the video about that because he's from Liberty. I can tell you the whole story about where he actually came up with that whole business. But Famous Amos and Grandma's. Do you think they started making their cookies in $1 million kitchen? No. They started making their cookies in the same damn kitchen you have in your house. When they made their cookies and they sold their cookies, did thousands of people die of food poisoning? No. Matter of fact, in some ways, you can argue that government interaction has caused a lot of the issues that we've had with recent outbreaks of food poisoning, like salmonella and things like that. Not all examples, but there's a lot of examples that you can point to that directly fall back on just solutions that had to be made because of government interaction, and because of those solutions, they wound up having less than perfect safeguards than the original so-called problem had in the first place. So there's some argument even that, government but they didn't start in a $1 million kitchen. They started in just a regular household kitchen, and thousands of people didn't die from food poisoning. But not saying Famous Amos and Grandma's Cookies in particular. I'm just using them as an example to show where they came from to what they are today. But companies similar to them that are in the same field as them have gone and lobbied with other companies that make other things that, started in somebody's kitchen to make sure that somebody else can't start in their kitchen and later on become a competitive threat to them. And too much regulation is designed to do exactly that. It's weaponized against the small mom and pop Main Street market. And it needs to be fixed. Do we need certain clean standards? Yes, we do. I'm not saying we don't. Should there be somebody, do we need the inspectors to go in and make sure people are sanitizing their counters and things like that properly? Yes, of course. I mean, we can't, unfortunately, being in what's supposed to be the freest nation in the world, unfortunately, we are not. We're far from it at this point in time right now. Probably, we're not even in the top 10 when it comes to the freest nations, when it comes to capitalism. That's sad. We're not even in the top 10. We used to be the leader. We were the leader for over 100 years. Now we're in the top 10. We're not even in the top 10. There's communist countries that are ahead of us. Communist countries. Go figure. So you need to fix the regulation problem. So we fixed the regulation, we fixed the tax system, and we introduced the UBI. We put the 3 all in threefold. That starts what the things that we need and gives us the tools that we need, and it gives the American people the power that they need to start rebuilding Main Street America. We make sure that when we do all this, we set in motion a plan for the UBI for, like I said, maybe in 10 years' time to start rolling back. For anybody who's making over $3,000 a month, the UBI goes away. For anybody making under $2,000 a month, the UBI will stay with them. For anybody making between $2,000 and $3,000 a month, for every dollar above $2,000, you lose a dollar. So it's a complete balance. It's not like the Johnson welfare system that's meant to keep you trapped in there and meant to make you not want to go to work, or meant to penalize you if you do go to work and try to gain independence. It's not going to be anything like the horrible Johnson welfare system that we currently live with. It will be nothing like that. This is going to be dollar for dollar, completely fair. This way, when you break past that, it's still worth your while to go out there and make money and to get away from the UBI. Because once you break free from the UBI, you're making more money than what the UBI was giving you anyway. And your sites are still unlimited. You're not going to have that area in there where you're going to be able to fall between the cracks and lose everything you own and have to start all over again, like the current welfare system intentionally does to people. I get upset when people call people who get welfare lazy, because the majority of them are. I'm not going to say that there aren't people out there gaming the system. Obviously there are. There's nothing you can do to fix that. Even under UBI, it will happen. There will always be a small majority that will game the system. We have to live with it. If we want to fix the system, we have to live with the fact that there's always going to be a small majority of bad apples. There's a small majority of bad apples in everything we look at. Granted, the government might be the one exception. There's a small majority of good apples in the barrel of bad apples in that case. But other than government, most things, it's a small majority of bad apples, and they're always going to be there, and there's nothing we can do about them. We have to live with it. But the problem with welfare now, the way it's set up, is if you put yourself in a position to get out, they throw you underneath the bus, knowing that there's a gap this big in between, and it sets you up to fail so that you have to fall back into the roles of welfare. That's why when you hear stories about people who defeated welfare and got out of welfare and broke the revolving door of the family welfare trap, it's so inspirational. That's why it's so inspirational. So obviously, we need to make sure that the UBI will not do that to people. So since that will be done, and eventually can get rid of Social Security for future generations, they won't have to pay into Social Security to be able to have their own 401k or IRA, or we ever fix the banking system and get back onto the gold standard, then, even just a regular savings account will make them money again, because you'll be able to make more interest on your savings, and it will still be cheaper for the bank to borrow the money from you than the Fed, which it's the opposite now, which is why you get such lousy interest rates on your savings account. So it will fix all those things. I mean, these aren't things, we can't fix them overnight, but if we did them 3 steps within a generation, we can be back to where we could be above and beyond where we were a generation ago when the whole world came to an end, because of all the regulation and because of all the games and because of all the rigging and because of all the politics, and because, as bad as it was prior to 2000, we were still moving up and up and up and up and up. We need to fix the Patriot Act. That's a whole nother story, though. That has nothing to do with the economy. That definitely needs to be abolished. Obamacare. I don't even want to get in on that right now. I just want to talk about the things about fixing the economy, the main focus of my points. So, these are simple things. They're not outrageous. And even if you're a libertarian, some people say that the idea of a UBI isn't libertarian. Obviously, conservatives are saying that it's not a conservative value. But the system is screwed. And it's the only realistic option right now, without just throwing everybody underneath the bus. It's the only realistic option we have right now to fix everything. And if you want this to fall back into anything that falls anything into what a libertarian, liberal like myself, or a conservative says they believe in, then you need to put the tools in place to get to that point. You can't just say, oh, well, there's 7 rungs missing from the ladder, but that's okay. I can still get to the roof. Good luck, Superman. It's just common sense. Because I get the argument. And I don't even disagree with the argument that it's not a libertarian, liberal value, or it's not a conservative value. I get the argument. And I get that it's not even a true free market value. The irony is, though, it's better than what we have right now. And it's the only way to fix all the damage that has been done to put us in the system that we have right now. It really is. It's the only way to fix it. You need something there. And the UBI is the only realistic answer. I mean, we could scream all day long that it's not a libertarian liberal value or it's not a conservative value. We could scream it all day long. It doesn't change the fact that we need something in place to fix all the destruction that the government has done just because politicians wanted to line their pockets, both conservative and Democrat alike. Both parties have put us where we are right now. Both parties have done this. Both parties have created the atmosphere that we live in that make a whole generation of young adults think that communism, the kind of communism that Bernie Sanders is preaching about, is a great thing. It's not. It really is not. But I can understand why they think it is a good thing. It makes complete sense because conservatives and progressives alike have put us where we are. They have done this together. They have worked together to do this. They've made it look like they're not working together, obviously. I mean, they're great actors. They've put on a great reality TV show, because that's all it is. Reality TV, that's all it's been. And we all know the truth behind reality TV. This is reality TV. What you watch on TV is not reality TV. That is all staged. That is all acting. And that's what has happened. And the only way to fix it is to make changes. And unfortunately, our biggest obstacle, sad to say, is not fixing the economy. Our biggest obstacle is actually getting trustworthy people to lead our country out of this. That's sad. We have no candidates that are trustworthy. On the Democrat side, Yang was the only guy I would trust that was up on that platform, or woman. He was the only person on that platform I would even remotely trust. And actually, I trust him a great deal because I've listened to him. I didn't watch him, I listened. But that is going to be our greatest obstacle in fixing this problem. It's not implementing them 3 things. It's getting politicians that will actually work in our favor and not do everything they can to sabotage one another.